Welcome everybody to week 3 of Now Showing with Mike and Wayne. The first 2 weeks, to our knowledge, have gone great for us at least. We like sitting here talking about movies. We talked about movies to get to know us by in episode 1. Episode 2 was mob films. This week we are going to talk about sports movies. Now, Wayne, you and I together, we've talked about countless sports movies all the time. It's probably a genre that gets grouped into drama or action every once in a while, but there's a lot of different sports movies. Some of the ones that, off the top of my head that I like watching all the time, Remember the Titans, Major League, which, you and I, Major League 1 and 2 especially, quote constantly. Fantastic movies, very funny. Mystery Alaska is one. I've only seen it probably like once or twice, but I really liked it back in the day, and I don't like a lot of hockey movies, so that's just one that I put on here. The Program, great college football movie. We talked about that one before. James Caan.
Love The Program.
Yeah, James
Love
Caan.
The Program.
Omar Epps, also from Major League 2.
Bud Light Kaminsky.
Yes.
Let's go.
The Longest Yard, both.
Which one?
Okay, so
Because
the
they're both
originals.
fantastic in their own right.
The original is better, but the Longest Yard remake, I think, has more repeat watch value to it. Like,
Right.
it's much more entertaining, I think. But the first
You
one
really
is good.
can't compare those two other than the names of characters.
Yes,
I think.
and that Burt Reynolds is in both of them.
Yep.
That's about it. So yeah, I mean, just going through, there's just so many really great sports movies. Obviously, ones that have won Oscars and stuff. Raging Bull. I know Denzel was nominated for The Hurricane. That's a really good boxing movie.
Rocky. I mean, you got the
Rocky,
fighter.
yeah. I mean, Rocky won Best Picture that year, and Stallone was nominated for a couple things.
That's a lot of things that people forget about that. Yeah, he wrote and directed that and won an Academy Award for it.
He wrote the first one. He did not direct it. He didn't actually win. The movie won Best Picture.
Okay, that's what it is.
Yeah,
All right.
because that's the thing is everyone assumed that he had won, but it won Best Picture. But he was nominated, though, I think for performance and for writing, I believe.
Right.
But yeah, that's...
And this is why we're doing this, ladies and gentlemen, because when I say incorrect things, Michael corrects me.
Another one of my personal favorites. We're not going to talk about it a lot on here this week. Probably when we get to, at some point, we'll break this down. We'll do one about football movies, one about boxing movies, or fighting movies in general. Friday Night Lights. I love that movie. Billy Bob Thornton is fantastic. The rest of the cast is great. Very raw performances because a bunch of young
how about
actors.
Tim McGraw in that movie?
Tim McGraw, yes.
Singer?
Tim McGraw as Garrett Hedlund.
I forget. Not nice dude.
Yeah, is Garrett
Really
Hedlund's
believable.
character's father. Very kind of a jerk, alcoholic, not a very nice person. Plays a very good part in that. But yeah, and there's just so many to talk about. But
It was so difficult trying to make the selections about what I was going to talk about this week. I'm glad you brought up breaking down an actual genre like football and all that stuff because I had like a list of like 15.
Yep.
And then I narrowed it down after like an hour. So
Well,
yes.
and mainly because one of my favorite sports movies is a race car movie, and I don't like race cars really. We're gonna have to do a racing one too because I love Rush. But
I thought you were going to say the Disney classic Cars.
No, not a fan of cars. I tried to get Donovan into it. He wasn't a fan either. So,
Love for Owen Wilson, huh? All right.
Wow. So yeah, all right. So we'll start with me this week since we started with you last week, Wayne. The first movie I'm going to talk about is a movie. It's a comedy, but it's a spoof comedy, and I think it doesn't get the respect it deserves. And it's Basketball, starring Trey Parker and Matt Stone. Yes, I've seen it probably like 30 times. It's directed by one of the Zucker brothers, known for Airplane and Naked Gun. They teamed up with Trey Parker and Matt Stone in 1998, right when South Park was hitting. I mean, they were just basically blowing up. So and even when South Park hit, no one knew what they looked like. So this was a good example to show like what they could do in a live action setting. It's ridiculous, but it's hilarious. It's probably one of the funniest movies that I think I've seen. Trey Parker and Matt Stone are in
But
it.
did this come
obviously.
out before or after the South Park movie?
It was like right before, I think. I believe South Park the movie was 99 and this was 1998. Yasmin Bleeth, Jenny McCarthy, Ernest Borgnine, Robert Vaughn is in it. Bob Costas is great as Bob Costas. Him and Al Michaels have some great one-liners, similar to something like Major League with Harry Doyle. Because it's a spoof, they go so much further and so much darker than Major League does. Where Major League is treated as like a comedy, but a serious movie about baseball. And also, a guy we talked about last week from Unsolved Mysteries, Robert Stack. Robert Stack plays himself, and it's an unsolved mystery when Coop, played by Trey Parker, goes missing. And again, they do some hilarious things with that. David Zucker wrote it, written by him and Robert LaCash, Louis Friedman, Jeff Wright. It's hilarious. I mean, I can't really go into detail about some of the jokes and stuff, but it's just so funny. And if you haven't seen it, Basketball, again, it's a movie from 1998. It's older, but it's still really, really funny. And it hits, if you like South Park, if you like their comedy. I haven't seen Book of Mormon yet, but if you like Book of Mormon and saw it, like, you may probably like Basketball because a lot of it is very improv. You can tell that they had a say in a lot of their jokes.
Yeah. And you gotta just keep it, when the time this was made, some of the jokes may be deemed as offensive now. You really just kind of got to go into a lot of the 90s comic coming-of-age teen movies with a grain of salt and be like, you may be offended now by some of the jokes, but at the time, it's a different time.
Yes, it was a different time, and it was a hilarious time, in my opinion.
Well, I just bring that up because I'd hate to recommend somebody watch and be like, wow, that is really offensive. So
no, I agree, and it's got to come somewhat with a warning. Like, just remember that it's made by the South Park guys too, and they're known to take things very far, and they do in this movie. They go for it, as many people would say. In many scenes, you could tell that they were just told to, like, hey, just go all out, and they did, and it was hilarious. Trey Parker even writes a song that makes it on the radio within the movie. Really funny stuff. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, if you're not familiar, he's in quite a few of the Zucker brother movies. He's in Airplane. He's also has a cameo in it.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just really good, really funny. Highly recommended if you haven't seen it. And we'll go to you, Wayne, for...
I am really super happy you brought up the Bob Costas part, because my first choice, 2004's Dodgeball, a true underdog story, is fantastic. You got Vince Vaughn, Ben Stiller, Christine Taylor, Rip Torn, Justin Long, Alan Tudyk. I know there's more, but I'm drawing a blank now. Just a fantastically goofy film about a gym owner who is, not doing real well, and he's, he's definitely a man of the people, cares about the people that come to his gym, whatnot, but, they take on Globo Gym, Ben Stiller character. Just lots of great stuff, but much like the Bob Costas playing himself, we have a great cutaway just added. I don't know, what would you call it? What are and I'm drawing a blank on the two actors, Jason Bateman and Gary
Cole, yeah.
Yes.
They're it's a supporting role. It's not even a cameo because they're in quite a bit of it.
You've got cameos from Lance Armstrong and the man himself, Chuck Norris.
Chuck Norris, yep.
When I think about goofy comedies that make me laugh, even though this movie is now 16 years old, and at any point when I catch this on TV somewhere, I have to watch it till the end, just because it's one of those just goofy sports things that it just hits so many marks. And I think Rip Torn is probably what makes the movie for me. I mean, if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. I mean, how many quotable lines from that movie? And really, what makes a movie memorable for you? I mean, I think the quotable lines, and
especially for comedies.
Exactly. For comedies especially. So, obviously, it crosses some lines. And some of my favorite lines I'm not going to repeat right now because it borderlines on obscene. So, but yes, 2004's Dodgeball.
It's a great movie.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Here's a clue. When I was looking up the details, IMDb shows that there is a sequel. Dodgeball 2 is in the works.
They've been talking about it for years. I think they did like a special, like almost like a reunion thing where they got everybody together, but it wasn't like a full movie, obviously. Yeah, they've been talking about it. We'll see. It'll be interesting if it finally gets done. At this point, it's like, I mean, what are you going to do? Like, it's going to be 20 years later. I guess it wouldn't be the first time they've done it, but I guess...
Would White Goodman still be fat?
Yes, that's true. That's true. Where would they go with that? Maybe it's...
Will Blazer and Blazer be in it?
Maybe it's a reverse, though. Maybe if you do Dodgeball 2, you have Ben Stiller's character kind of on the outs now, and he's trying to get back to a respectable level of where he was before he, lost everything. And
a true redemption story.
A true redemption story.
Dodgeball 2 redemption story. Oh, it's writing itself.
And there it is. We should call them right now. Ben Stiller, if you're listening, we have your idea for Dodgeball 2, and you should call us.
What else is he doing? I mean, he's not doing anything right now, right?
It was being Ben Stiller, I think. All right, so 2 comedies off the bat, Dodgeball, Basketball, both great movies. You guys should watch them. Next one I'm going to go to, it's a drama. It's become one of my favorite sports movies over the last, 10 years or whatever since it's been out. It's Moneyball, starring Brad Pitt, directed by Bennett Miller, written by Aaron Sorkin. It's a movie that really, it shouldn't work probably because it's basically about transactions. It's a movie about business, but it's surrounded by baseball, which I think all of us can relate to sports, so it's a great way to set that story. It takes place during the A's, was it 2001 season, I believe?
Yeah, Billy Beane, right?
Yeah, Billy Beane is played by Brad Pitt here. He basically is told that his team needs to be just as good as it was last year, despite the fact that they are losing 3 of their top players, can't afford to pay anybody else any money, and need to figure out a way to still be as good. So he goes out, he makes some trades, he brings in Jonah Hill's character, who basically is what starts the whole idea that we have, system that we have now in baseball, that the Red Sox and the Cubs both used to go on and win World Series, Moneyball. And that's, you take guys and you look at their on base percentage, which is stuff that wasn't looked at before 2000. You look at all the stats that kind of everyone ignored that don't seem important, and then
analytics of it all.
Analytics, and you base your baseball team on that. And the A's now, they never won a World Series based off this method, but they got close. They got real close.
Yep.
And it kind of started this new trend in baseball, and people liked what they did, and they took it, and they, like I said, the Red Sox have turned it into multiple championships. The Cubs won a World Series, my Cubbies, off of this same off the same analytics.
There is another team in Chicago that also won a World Series.
They did. They won.
It's just that nobody remembers ever.
Hey,
thank you, SportsCenter.
I remember, but they won the World Series, but it wasn't really necessarily Moneyball wise. They won it with just a very young team, and and it was very respectable. They won, and they deserved it. And they should be talking. This is a Cubs fan saying it. The White Sox should be talking about more. Let's move off the White Sox and the Cubs, though. Let's go on to Moneyball. Brad Pitt this is probably the turning point for him in his career, I think. He had been good in movies up until this point. A lot of good performances. Nominated before for 12 Monkeys. But this performance in Moneyball kind of showed his growth as an actor, in my opinion. He's never going to be that character actor that Leonardo DiCaprio is. He's always going to be Brad Pitt playing a role. But this is probably one of my favorite roles that he's ever played, and he did a fantastic job. This was 2 years removed from Inglourious Basterds, another fantastic role for him.
Where does this fall within the Benjamin? When did Benjamin Button come out in relationship to this? I think it was 2012? Was Button?
It was right around, it was right around this time.
Maybe later? Brad Pitt really transitions from the beefcake heartthrob that you see in
Fight Club.
Yeah, it was right there. I couldn't think of it again. I'm losing my mind. Legends of the Fall. Another one of my favorite Brad Pitt movies. Ooh, I can't wait till we do Brad Pitt Day.
I'm excited for that one.
Yes.
Benjamin Button was actually 2008. So that was, so...
Maybe 2012 was the last time I actually watched the movie.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at his filmography around this time, you do see the change. You see Benjamin Button in 2008, Assassination of Jesse James by the Car of Robert Ford in 2007, Inglourious Bastards, then Moneyball, Killing Them Softly, which we talked about last week, is a mob movie. And then producing-wise, too, I mean, he produced 12 Years a Slave, a great movie, which he was in minor role on. But Moneyball, to me, just sets apart, like, aside from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood this year, which is one of his best performances as well, this is the other one that I really like. I honestly, watching Once Upon a Time a couple times already, I went back and watched Moneyball because of that. I'm like, I need to watch this again. And he's just so good in it. Jonah Hill, I mean, everybody knows at this point it was his first Oscar nomination.
Hopefully the first of many, because he's really, really grown as an actor. I mean, obviously, getting his start in, was that the 40-Year-Old Virgin? The guy
all the way back. Yeah. He was in a few movies back then he was in Accepted as well, the college comedy with Justin Long.
Was Superbad really Jonah Hill's first big
That was his breakout, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Superbad was his breakout, but this movie, I think, put him on a different chart. Like, when Martin Scorsese comes knocking after he sees you in a movie, you've done something right. And Philip Seymour Hoffman, the late Philip Seymour Hoffman, he'd worked with Bennett Miller. He's a friend of Bennett Miller, so it makes sense he was in this movie. Obviously, him passing was unfortunate. I was a huge fan of his. Still am. But he was great in this as Art Howe, the coach of the A's. Everybody involved did a great job. The screenplay is fantastic. If you don't like Aaron Sorkin, you may not like it because his dialogue gets a little wordy, and it's not always how people actually talk. It's more how people think. But I like that style, and it works really well here. It makes, like I said, I'm not even the biggest baseball fan, but it makes baseball interesting in a way that I want to keep watching this movie. And anytime I think of a sports movie to watch, this one pops in my mind initially. I mean, it's just fantastic. It's very gripping for being a movie, again, that's about statistics and analytics. As boring as you can make a movie sound, but it is very compelling, and just the way it's handled, and highly recommended if you haven't seen it. Moneyball, check it out. Wayne, what's your number 2?
All right. I am going back to 1999, high school football, Varsity Blues, directed by Brian Robin. James Van Der Beek, breakout star of Dawson's Creek. Well, I don't know a breakout star, but he was the leading man. He was Dawson.
He's a breakout star. People started knowing him.
I was a huge Creek head. Loved Dawson's Creek. So good. This is a high school football team movie in Texas. And if you don't know anything about Texas high school football, huge down there. Supporting cast, Paul Walker, Scott Kahn, Amy Smart, Allie Larder, and a young Jesse Plemons has a small role in this.
Really?
Yes, he plays the younger brother of Paul Walker's character.
Oh, okay. All right, I see that.
Maybe 2 scenes.
Even I didn't know that.
Well, I'm going to give the credit to IMDb for pointing that out, because I didn't know it either until about a half hour ago. I was a junior in high school on the football team when this came out. So this movie, when it was even coming out, it's an MTV production. So a lot of hype in the late 90s. Yep. Obviously the Dawson's Creek crowd was into it because of James Van Der Beek. Paul Walker had been in a couple of movies before this, but he wasn't the star that he was. And I know, obviously, rest in peace, Paul Walker, but I've really came to know him and just seeing his face through the Fast and Furious movies. So this is 2-3 years before that. I think it was 2001 when that came out. But I'm going to say it's an accurate portrayal of high school football team getting away with, stuff and whatnot. Granted, it's very much enhanced story. I mean, yes. I'm pretty sure nobody's going to get away with the stuff that they get away with in this movie. But I got away with a fair amount just because I was on the team. Wasn't a starter or anything like that, so I don't even know. what kind of benefits they may have gotten, but I got away with my fair share just because I play football. Also, this movie introduces you to the wonders of the whipped cream bikini. I'll let your mind wander. I don't think I need to expand on that. If you don't know, maybe you want to check this out. If you like sports and you like coming-of-age teen movie, high school movies, definitely check this out. Do you have any thoughts on this film? Do you remember it?
Yeah, no. This is one of those ones that, when I go to bed at night, I usually put a movie on to watch. And Varsity Blues is one that comes up every so often. I don't do it every night, but you just put on something to watch that I've seen a bunch of times. I like this movie a lot. I wouldn't, it's one of those things like I'm not going to go saying it's like a great movie, but it's very entertaining. The characters are a lot of fun. I love Scott Conn. I'm a huge fan of him. Son
Tweeter.
Tweeter, son of James
Twitter.
Conn.
Tweeter.
Tweeter, yeah, it's Tweeter. And it's a fun movie. I mean, when you got to put it into perspective of when we watched it too. We were in high school, so seeing high school kids like go to a strip club and drink all the time and have these wild parties, it was a lot of fun for us to watch someone else live out this idea of what high school was supposed to be. Obviously, it's an exaggerated idea of what high school is. Movies like this, they do that because they're not, it's realistic to a point, but obviously they have to take it a step further. Otherwise it's not as entertaining.
Exactly. Great soundtrack for this movie.
Oh,
too,
fantastic! Foo Fighters. I mean,
Foo Fighters, Green Day.
Green Day's on the soundtrack. Really great late '90s soundtrack. Lots of great, sports moments in the movie. Lots of good comedy. It's like you mentioned the bikini already, which was parodied. I loved in Not Another Teen Movie by the great Chris Evans, a.k.a. Captain America. Paul Walker was, fine in this. It was a good role for him. He's the pretty boy who gets injured. So, James Van Der Beek, though, he was kind of what the whole movie was about. And people, I think, related to him because he was kind of like the everyman. He didn't want to be a superstar, but then he got to be a superstar, and he liked being a superstar.
I like the storyline about this, too. Like, all the fathers who also grew up in West Canaan, Texas.
Yes.
This is your opportunity. I don't want your life.
Yeah. Playing football, West Canada High School was your dream, was your life. I don't want your life.
We are both terrible with Texas accents. I
you know what? I think the problem is James Van Der Beek was terrible with a Texas accent, so we all sound like that now when we try to imitate him.
And then he has a speech at the end to rally the troops, and the evil coach John Voight, who doesn't really care about the players and just kind of uses them as stepping stones for his next district title.
Yes.
Makes a speech about, go out there, this game is going to, affect the rest of your life. And then conversely, at halftime, when James Van Der Beek stands up to him, go out there and play the next 48 minutes for the next 48 minutes.
Yep.
Kind of thing. And I've totally butchered the impactful speech, but it's just one of those motivational things. It's like, it is just a game.
Yes.
But go out there and play like a hero until that game is over with.
Yes, exactly. Play your heart out until it's over. If you win, you win. If you lose, you lose. That's that's how I've always looked at sports. Maybe this movie is one of those things that push me in that direction. Obviously, and I get in arguments with my wife about this from time to time. Obviously, the goal when you play a game is to win. But knowing that everybody doesn't win helps you.
It doesn't matter whether you win or lose. It's how you play the game.
And maybe it's comments like that make people go like, yeah, that's kind of, you sound like a wussy when you say that. But it's true because it's true to the fact that like it doesn't matter whether you win or lose because someone has to win and someone has to lose. You always want to win when you play a game, whether it's a video game, a card game, or an actual football game, or the game of life. But it just set it up to be like, don't let whatever happens here is not going to affect the rest of your life. And I think that's a good way to look at sports. Like, just because Dan Marino lost, never won a Super Bowl, it doesn't mean that he's a bad quarterback, right? He's one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game. Never won a Super Bowl. So I think this movie, we're getting a little off topic here. But I think
our show, we can do what we want.
Yeah, that's true. I think this movie definitely sets that kind of opinion up to be like, hey, just have fun, have a good time, and everything will work out the way it's supposed to. maybe we're taking Varsity Blues a little seriously, but you know what? It's what we were thinking about when we were teenagers, I guess. It kind of needed that to, like, don't put so much pressure on yourself, and I think that helped. So.
Yep. Also, one person character we did not touch on, the Billy Bob character.
Billy Bob, rest in peace as well. Yep.
He was, you don't see a lot of big guys. And when we talk about Billy Bob and Ron Lester's character, big guys.
Yes.
Getting a lot of screen time. And, he was really, just typecast type, one-dimensional big guy type, in the beginning. And he really kind of has, and they give him something more than just, I'm the funny fat guy.
Yes. He kind of, at a certain point, he kind of becomes the heart of the movie, which I think is important to have other characters like that, because not everybody relates to the pretty boy James Van Der Beek or the pretty boy Paul Walker. A lot of us relate to the overweight offensive tackle, which I was only on 1 year of football, but I was either offensive tackle or defensive tackle because I was a big guy. I can guess I know you were pretty tall back then, or still pretty tall.
I played line as well.
Yeah, line. So I mean, it was a character that I think a lot of us resonated with. It was good that they gave him a lot of emotional things to deal with. And it really, honestly, one of the very few movies to touch on concussions, especially back then, and how serious they could be. I mean, there was they want him to go back out and play immediately, which is what everybody in football wants a guy with a concussion to do, but it takes Van Der Beek and some of the other guys to be like, dude, this guy's messed up. We need to get him help. And, they get him cleared before he goes back on the field the last time. So, yeah, I mean, I think that having that character in that movie, I think definitely helped it be memorable. It wasn't just another football movie. I'm going to move on to my last one here that I want to talk about. It's probably my favorite sports movie, or one of anyway. Any Given Sunday, directed by Oliver Stone, starring Jamie Foxx, LL Cool J, Cameron Diaz, Al Pacino, Bill Bellamy, Lawrence Taylor, Jim Brown, James Woods.
James Woods is so cringy in this movie.
He is.
So cringy.
One thing I'll say about James Woods is these movies, because he's kind of a bastard in real life. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just Google James Woods tweets, you'll understand.
Yeah.
It makes these roles okay to still watch, though. Like, a lot of the movies I still watch him in are like this, where he plays a really big scumbag. So you don't like him, you're not supposed to like him. He's a scumbag, and that's the character. And obviously it seems like that's who James Woods is in real life. But his character definitely, you have Matthew Modine, who's another actor I was going to mention. He takes over for him after, obviously, he gets fired. Which he's a much better person than James Woods' character in this movie. Very scummy. It's basically, the movie takes place in a season where, and I forgot to mention Dennis Quaid. Dennis Quaid is Cap Rooney. He's the main quarterback of the team. He gets hurt one game. The backup comes in. He also gets hurt. That leaves Jamie Foxx, a.k.a. Willie Beeman.
Steamin'
Willie Beeman is the third-string quarterback, comes off the bench, throws up immediately because of the nerves, doesn't know the playbook because he really hasn't paid attention, doesn't even have his helmet with him. He goes out there, has a pretty good game. So they end up having to go with him the rest of the way. So it's basically about how the team and him mold together, and how Pacino, who's the head coach, molds with his now new star quarterback. A lot of ups and downs with the team and the coach, and it just goes throughout the season of them like getting to finally getting to a point where they're a cohesive team with him at quarterback.
Careful, I'm worth $1 million.
Yes. Which is funny to hear today. Like, and the NFL, it's not really that much anymore.
Yeah, what's the rookie minimum? Like
yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. But yeah, so Lawrence Taylor in it, he plays a linebacker, Shark LeVay, who's out to get his $1 million bonus. That's
concussion issues.
Yes. They also very much touch on concussion issues. This movie, however, deals how with the NFL, even though it's not the NFL, basically sweeps them under the rug. which was very controversial at the time for the NFL. The NFL distanced themselves from this movie, despite the fact that Jerry Jones and some of the other NFL owners allowed them to film in their stadiums and stuff.
Yes.
And Jerry Jones was actually in the movie. Him and Oliver Stone play announcers together at one point.
Mm-hmm. One of the first real inside a professional sports league that you kind of think, well, maybe this is a little bit too accurate.
Yes.
I remember, was it ESPN had a football show for one season that got canceled because it was a little bit too...
Playmakers. The same idea. It was basically like Any Given Sunday, but as a TV show. So this movie, I love this movie, which is why we're talking about it. It just... probably the last like 40 minutes are just so like take you on such a high because you get this great speech from Pacino. The team goes out and they just like destroy their opponent, and it's not even in the Super Bowl or anything. A champion, it's to get to there or to get to the next round of the playoffs, really. But it's just showing how they became together as a team. This is one of those movies that I think it's very 50-50. People either really like it or they really hate it, and I like it because of how real it feels. I understand that it's exaggerated in the story, and some of the things that happen are a little ridiculous. But I think Oliver Stone did that to make it seem ridiculous to a certain level. But the way he shot it, he put the cameras on the players. I thought that was awesome. That's something we really hadn't seen in a sports movie before. So a lot of the stuff that's happening, you've got these players wearing these cameras and they're coming in and they're trying to get Jamie Foxx and LL Cool J, and it's just really, it looks really cool and really crazy. And Pacino again, he gives a fantastic performance. Probably before Irishman, one of his last really great performances.
The speech that he gives in the locker room.
Oh God, it gets to me every time, man. I love that speech. I actually used that speech in speech class 1 year in college, but that was probably because I was in love with this movie and I saw it many times. But yeah, just a great supporting cast too. Cameron Diaz is really good here as the new owner of the Sharks, which is their team name.
I criticized Cameron Diaz last week for her performance in
Gangs of New York.
And, this is a role where she was actually really, really good.
Yeah.
And I just want to give props when props are deserved, because when I give critiques, I do kind of feel bad. But, hey.
No, she definitely, this is one of those roles that she's really good in. And I think kind of earned her stripes a little bit, even though this is before Gangs of New York. But honestly, this movie is probably something that interested Martin Scorsese in hiring her in the first place. It just wasn't the same type of role. It's a different role. But, yeah, I mean... What else can I say about this movie? I love this movie. I think it's fantastic. I think it's probably my favorite Oliver Stone movie. I know he's done a lot of great movies. Doesn't mean it's his best, just my favorite.
And it's not JFK. Come on.
God, that movie's so long. Honestly, Platoon's probably my favorite. We could do a whole. We'll probably discuss Oliver Stone movies. We may even do a whole episode on that.
Absolutely.
But this movie, if you haven't seen it, check it out. It pops up on Netflix from time to time. I'm not sure if it's on there at the moment, but it's really...
I don't believe so.
Yeah, it's really good. The cast is, again, like I said, is fantastic. Even the fact that they have Bill Bellamy as a comedian. He was just kind of becoming an actor at the moment. Lawrence Taylor's a former football player, not an actor. His only other movie I could think of is Waterboy. And then another sports movie. And then you have Andrew Bernarski as the crazy offensive lineman who listens to heavy metal and has a pet alligator. Like, there's just so many characters in this movie that stand out.
I remember him throwing.
He throws it. He throws it in the shower.
There was a lot of man in that. In those.
Yes, there is a lot of nudity, male nudity in this movie. So if nudity in general is something you're not a fan of, then don't watch it. But
I just give it props because most of the time it's gorgeous women who are topless, completely naked, and
they kind of you turn into a real locker room. So they turn into a real locker room. Men are usually not clothed when you go into a football locker room, and as we've seen in real life, when some reporters go in, sometimes they accidentally shoot these guys wearing nothing. So. But yeah, so I mean, it's a great movie. Kind of going over that again, but anyway, check it out. Any Given Sunday, fantastic. Wayne, what is your number 3 movie you want to talk about today?
I am going back to 1980. Harold Ramis directed Caddyshack. Fantastic movie about golf. Whether you think it's a sport or not, there's always been some debate. I think it takes a lot of skill and a lot of patience and strategy. So it's making the list because, well, I chose it and deal with it. Haha. Not that you would have a problem with it, but yeah. Chevy Chase, Rodney Dangerfield, Bill Murray, Ted Knight. Movie is centered around Michael O'Keefe's Danny. I forget Danny's last name. He is
Danny Noonan.
Noonan. That's
Noonan.
What
yep.
It is. I was gonna say O'Doyle. I'm like, no, O'Doyle is an Adam Sandler thing. Okay.
Yes.
My bad. Yes, Danny Noonan is a caddy at the prestigious Bushwood Golf Club. And yeah, it just centers around the activities of the caddies for that particular summer and the ridiculous members and so many different ways we can attack this one. What are your thoughts on Caddyshack?
Caddyshack, I love it. It's a classic. It's funny that, like, for me, I look at it as like a Bill Murray movie, and like he's not even in it that much, but his character of Carl Speckler stands out, obviously, because he's hilarious in it. It's one of the best characters in the movie. Obviously, Chevy Chase as Ty Webb is fantastic. I mean, he's great.
Terrible.
Yes, terrible impression of Ty Webb. That's okay. He's great in this movie. It really is kind of. I mean, even though it's Michael O'Keefe's movie, I guess it's the stars that carry it. Rodney Dangerfield, Chevy Chase, Ted Knight, Bill Murray, Brian Doyle Murray, who co-wrote it, as he is the manager at the golf course.
Pick up that blood.
Yeah, there's just so many good.
What's that sign say? No bare feet. What's that one say? No fighting.
Brian Doyle Murray and the Murray brothers grew up I don't know if they grew up on golf courses, but they grew up playing golf. And that's kind of where this stemmed from, is they were caddies when they were younger.
Bill Murray definitely struck me as a caddy at some point in his life.
And Brian Doyle Murray, because he's the older brother, he was the caddy first, I think. So the rest of them followed in his footsteps, if I remember correctly. And that's where this movie came from. He wanted to write this, and he got it to, I don't know if he met with Harold Ramis. They may have already been friends at that point. Doug Kenny, who was one of the founders of National Lampoons, he also wrote it as well, or National Lampoon. So I mean, it's got a lot of comedy pedigree to it. Harold Ramis being obviously one of them as well. I mean, he wrote a bunch of movies that were classic comedies back in the day. Rest in peace, Harold Ramis. We miss you.
Yes. Because Harold Ramis and Bill Murray are in this, I feel compelled to bring up Ghostbusters. And Brian Doyle Murray was in Ghostbusters as well, right? He was in, or was he in the second one?
Let's see. Hold on. Let me look that up for you real quick. But just on Caddyshack, I mean, it's a classic comedy. It probably is one of those movies on paper, if you look at it, probably shouldn't work as well as it does, but it's so funny. Rodney Dangerfield, it was his first acting role. He was already a comedian at that point. It's his very first movie. Obviously, he showed that he could handle a role in a movie that size.
The craziness of this movie and what went into shooting it and the amount of ad-libbing and going off the script.
Yes.
And I think between Rodney Dangerfield and Bill Murray, just amount of stuff that they just came up with on the fly, and Harold Ramis with his just intuition to be like, you know what? It's not a script, but it's funny. Let's go with it. And
yes. Brian Doyle Murray was not in Ghostbusters, but he was in Ghostbusters 2. Also in Scrooge with his brother, one of my favorite Bill Murray movies.
I can't wait for the holiday show.
Oh, yeah. That'll be a good one, because we're going to talk about a lot of Christmas stuff. Harold Ramis also directed National Lampoon's Vacation, which Brian Doyle Murray was also in. But anyway, that being said, it's a great movie. I actually have another movie to recommend on the back of that movie. I think a lot of people probably haven't seen it. It's a Netflix original, and it is about Doug Kenny, who's, as I said, the creator of National Lampoons. Or Lampoon. I keep calling it Lampoons. National Lampoon magazine. and then that stemmed. You got a lot of movies that stemmed out of that as well.
But just while you're looking, I wanted to bring up just the amount of one-liners that are still just shared back and forth today. I mean, anything Rodney Dangerfield said in the movie is pretty much still repeated in our circles, at least. 4, I should have yelled 2. You want to earn $14 the hard way? I bet you were something before electricity.
I bet this hat comes with a free bowl of soup. Ah, but it looks good on you, though.
Dog food? I'll show him dog food.
I did find the movie that touches on the kind of the behind the scenes of Caddyshack. It's called A Futile and Stupid Gesture. It stars Will Forte as Doug Kenny, who I said is one of the creators of National Lampoon. And it has Harold Ramis as a character in it. Bill Murray's a character in it. Chevy Chase, played by Joel McHale. It's directed by David Wayne, Wet Hot American Summer. If you're interested in Caddyshack, you should watch it because it goes into like how they created that and actually goes behind the scenes and shows some of the scenes that we now know and love and how they got to those scenes as well. So it's been an interesting look into that. But yeah, I mean, I think for now that ends we talked about kind of honorable mentions earlier.
Oh, yeah, there's just so many. And like you said, we're going to pick sports genres as we move on.
Yes, we're going to have definitely a...
We did not talk about the majesty of Kevin Costner baseball movies.
Or what about Tim Cup, Kevin Costner sports movies?
Yeah.
It's not just baseball, man.
There are quite a few hockey movies. I know you're not a big hockey fan.
I love Goon.
Mighty Ducks,
Goon.
Miracle, one of my personal favorites.
See, we're going to have to do a hockey one for 2 reasons. 1, I didn't like Miracle. And 2, I've never seen, you're going to probably be surprised in this, I've never seen Slapshot. So I say before we do a hockey one, I need to watch it, and then we can talk about it.
You should probably experience it. Remember, it was made in the 70s, so...
Oh, I know, yeah.
Okay. A lot of stuff that was joked about is not as, it's one of those things that we talked about earlier. Grain of salt.
You have to be prepared to watch a movie, and you know what, and people out there listening, just because we're giving you these warnings doesn't mean you have to like the movie. You could still hate the movie based on the fact that they are offensive in that movie. That's okay. We're just telling you that at the time, we thought it was hilarious, and you don't have to think so.
And in fact, if you disagree with something, get in touch with us. Come on the show. Let's debate.
We are all about debating.
You are all entitled to your incorrect opinions.
We'd love to hear from people because we love talking movies, which is why we're doing this. I know it seems like we ramble on a lot, but that's because our minds go in so many different directions when we're talking about movies that we got to pull from over here, we got to pull from over there, and that's just how we go. That's how we get our opinions and have a conversation. Moving on, the movie that we're going to review this week is Palm Springs, a new comedy. It's an original movie on Hulu, directed by Max Barbakow, written by Andy Sierra, starring Andy Samberg, Kristen Milotti, J.K. Simmons, Peter Gallagher, Camila Mendez, Tyler Hoechlin. Big, nice cast there. So this movie was supposed to be one of those ones that was going to be in theaters. Unfortunately, due to COVID, Hulu got the rights to it. Or fortunately, maybe, if you like watching movies at home like we do. Fortunately, yes. Hulu got the rights to it, so we didn't have to wait to go see it in theaters.
While I like this movie, I don't think I would have enjoyed it as much in the theater.
Okay.
I think it was something I would have definitely enjoyed more at home, which I am thankful that I was able to.
Yes, and I completely understand that. A lot of times people are that way with comedies because comedies don't always have big spectacles that you need to see in the theaters.
But I give it props because anytime I can see June Squibb on screen, I'm good.
June Squibb is also in this. Yeah, she is also
National
very good.
Treasure.
So we'll start off with the premise of this movie. Palm Springs takes place in Palm Springs during a wedding. However,
spoiler,
there is a groundhog twist to this. And I know it's kind of weird that the movie Groundhog has now become its own genre of films, but there's been enough of them, TV shows and movies, that we can now consider it its own genre. So this one's a little different. It's a little more sciencey. It goes into the scientific idea of it. It's this portal in the middle of the desert that we don't know when the movie starts, how long Andy Samberg has been living this day. We just know that he's been reliving this day for a long time. They never really he basically tells you it's been a long time. One day, and this is just kind of the plot synopsis here, Kristen Milioti's character follows him into this cave when he's been shot by the character Roy, which we'll get into in a little bit. He crawls into the portal, and she follows him, and she also ends up in the portal. So her days start restarting. Yeah. So he now has someone to kind of live his day with at this wedding every day.
Yes.
It's the same wedding.
The wedding of Tyler... How do we say Hoechlin?
Hoechlin is how I say it.
They're at the wedding of Tyler Hoechlin and...
Camille Mendes.
Camille Mendes, the sister of Kristen Milioti.
Yes.
Eden Pulse Rings, just a little background. And Andy Samberg is there with his girlfriend at the time. She is a bridesmaid.
Yes.
And he doesn't seem too enthused to be there. You know, you'd think, hey, support for, what your partner's going to be in. You know, it's a wedding, so, a happy, loving time. Show a little excitement, a little compassion about being there. And he's just kind of like, eh. So immediately you're like, okay, is he just a jerk? Mm-hmm. What's going on? It initially made me want to know what the heck was going on because I did not look into this movie at all when we chose to review it. I wanted to go in completely with no idea or no expectations. So I was kind of like, huh. And it was rough. The first 20 minutes, I'm like, I don't want to watch. I don't want to finish this. It's not bringing me in. And then once things start rolling, it's like, I see what we're doing here. Okay.
Yeah.
Would you consider this? I know it's not a time travel movie, but it's a movie about time.
It is. Yep.
So I'm going to add this to my list of love stories that involve time.
They call it a time warp. Basically, they fall in. It's Andy Samberg has a great line to describe it. I forget what it was, but it talks about basically how it's one of your standard time warp situations, and she's like, yeah, because I know what the hell that is. So yeah, I mean it's a funny movie. It is a rom-com, but it's more than that. I don't like describing it as that because when you tell someone who's not into rom-coms that it's a rom-com, they're going to immediately not want to watch it. I think there's a lot to it. It's about loneliness. It's about kind of what we perceive happiness to be and what is actually happiness. So it goes very in depth into people really and how we are.
To be vague about this, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. To relive a really bad decision that you made over and over again, and just the ramifications of that, I'm being intentionally vague. Go watch it, and you'll figure it out really quickly.
No, for sure. And once you find something like when some of the twists kind of happen, and you start realizing what's going on and what he's been keeping from her, because again, like we said, he's been living this day a lot longer than she has. Things start to unravel a little bit. You start to kind of get a little bit of what's going on. There also and he always gives a fantastic performance, but a really fun performance from J.K. Simmons. He plays Roy, who you quickly find out is another person who accidentally followed him into the cave. And they did some drugs one night, and they got wasted, and they went to the cave, and Roy, played by J.K. Simmons, goes into it and ends up living the same day. And he hates Andy Samberg's character Niles because of this, so he tries to kill him as much as he can for revenge, knowing that it's not going to do anything because then he wakes up the next day and he's fine. But maybe that's why he does it, because at least as we find out, they can't die, but they do get caused pain. So at least he knows he's causing him pain every time he tries to kill him.
Very interesting, without again being vague. Mm-hmm. Very interesting how this plays out. And thankfully, there is a mid-credit scene because the way the film ends, it leaves me going, whoa, wait a minute here.
Yep. No, for sure. I was the same way. I'm like, oh, so we're just not going to touch on that, huh? And then it went back. I'm like, oh, okay. That was cool. I like that. Okay. I like that. This is, to me, I'm a huge, and I think we differ on this, I'm a huge Andy Samberg fan. I love Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I think it's a show that people are missing and that they need to watch. There's a lot more to it than people see on the surface. And he brings that, I think, to a lot of his other roles. He does that with this movie. He brings his Andy Sambergness that he has, but he can handle serious work. And this isn't the first time he's done it. He's had a few other movies that he's had serious roles in. And he can do it. And I think this, again, shows that Andy Samberg is capable of holding a movie and holding an audience for an hour and a half. a short movie, but it's a fun movie. Him and Kristen Milotti have really great chemistry together.
Yes.
She's really funny. She's been in some other movies and TV shows. The one thing I know her most for, she was in How I Met Your Mother in the last.
Was she the mother?
Yes, and she is spoiler. The last 2 seasons, you find out that she's the mother, but she's been in some other stuff too.
Wow! If you have not seen that movie, I apologize, or that show, I apologize.
It's okay.
I'm guessing because I've never seen that show.
Oh, you haven't?
She's the mother. Oh, her.
Sorry.
So I apologize for spoiling that for
spoiler
and all of our listeners. Sorry about that.
If you haven't known that already, it's your fault because that show's been out for a long time. So I apologize to you, Wayne, for spoiling it. I assumed you had seen it.
It's okay. I'm not really in a big hurry to see it or watch it. I really liked Andy Samberg in this movie, though. So go and get back to Palm Springs there. I mean, it's no That's My Boy, the 2012 masterpiece with him and Adam Sandberg.
And Sandler.
Ah.
They're almost interchangeable at a certain point.
Yes, but I enjoyed it. It was creative, and it was something new. I mean, it's based on the Groundhog Day.
Mm-hmm. But it's an original story.
I'm going to use the word motif because I can't remember what the word you use. Genre,
yeah.
But it's still it's different. I mean, it is interesting the way they include some science and some little bits here and there and whatnot. So yeah, it's just interesting to see the journey that the two main characters go on too, and just how they kind of connect and
how they come to the end and stuff. Like it's really fun. It's like I said, it's a quick watch. It's an hour and a half. You'll enjoy it, I think, if you decide to watch it. I would give it, honestly, in my opinion, 4 out of 5 stars. I really liked it a lot. Definitely, again, like you were saying, it is part of the Groundhog genre, so it is like other movies, but it's an original idea. It's an original movie. People complain about not having original movies to watch. Everything's a rehash. It is an original idea just based on another subgenre of films. And yeah, it's really good. It's really entertaining. I definitely think people will have a good time with this movie.
Kristen Milotti was in The Wolf of Wall Street. Must have been maybe a little role.
She's
her filmography right now. So
she is his wife, his first wife.
Yes,
that's who she is. Yeah. Right. Wayne, what were your final thoughts on Palm Springs?
Yeah, I mean, I like it. I'd probably give it a 3.5 because it was so tough to hang in there. And honestly, I don't know if I would have finished it if we weren't reviewing this week.
Okay.
But it really picks up right at the halfway point. At 45 minutes is where you get the big. Okay, so I made it this far. Let's see this through. And then the back half
much stronger than the first half in your opinion. Yep.
Pacing and whatnot and everything. So yeah, good. Give it a watch.
All right. So moving on, we are going to talk about things that we've been watching. I've actually got some good stuff that I've been watching. This is a good week for new movies to come out. We haven't had really a lot of new release movie weeks that have brought a lot of good content. This week, I would beg to differ. There was a lot of good content that came out. I watched all 5 movies that I wanted to. Palm Springs was one of them we just talked about. So I'll go and talk into the other ones that I just watched. We'll start on Friday night. I watched The Old Guard. It's the new action flick with Charlize Theron on Netflix. I liked it a lot. I thought it was really entertaining, a lot of fun. Another, it's based off a graphic novel, but hey, it's an original movie idea. It's basically like this team of immortal assassins. They discover that there's a new one of them, so they got to bring her into the mix as well. It's a great international cast. The only American in the movie is Kiki Lane, basically, and she has been in a couple other movies. But this is it's a good role for her, I think. It'll get seen by a lot of people, which will be good. It also has Matthias Schoenaerts, who we mentioned last week, was in the movie The Drop I was talking about. He's really good in this one. Chiwetel Ejiofor, fantastic British actor, 12 Years a Slave, Salt. A lot of movies. He was in Doctor Strange. Really good movie, just a lot of fun. As I've said before, Netflix has become the home for the new action film, and I think this is one of the better ones that they've gotten out there. The other one I watched was...
I'm looking forward to seeing that action movie. I just watched the Chris Hemsworth one. Is it Extraction?
Extraction.
What it's called?
Yep.
A couple weeks ago. I really enjoyed that one.
That was fun, too. I like
that movie. Takes place, was that? Is it in India? or in that general region of the.
Yeah, it's in the Middle East.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm sorry. Please continue. Sorry.
No, that's okay. So the next movie I watched yesterday was The Beach House. I watched that right after Palm Springs.
The one with Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock?
No, it is not a sequel to The Lake House.
The Lake House. Yes.
Beach House is a new horror film. It's a Shudder exclusive, but you could rent or buy it anywhere, and then you could also, if you have Shudder, you could watch it without having to pay for it. It's a slow burn, very slow burn. It takes a while to get going, but the last 15, 20 minutes of it are pretty insane. Has a pretty crazy ending. I'm still thinking about it to this day, even though it was just yesterday. I'm still thinking about it to this very moment after watching it. It's a good movie. It's not going to be for everybody. It's definitely a movie. If you go look online, half the people are going to love it, half the people are going to hate it. But like I said, if you have Shudder, check it out. If not, you can rent or buy it. If you're looking for new stuff to watch, it's very original. The next thing I watched was Greyhound, which is the new Tom Hanks movie. It was supposed to be in theaters. He wrote it. He stars in it. It's an hour and a half. Another quick movie. All the movies I watched, aside from the Old Guard, are short, hour and a half flicks. Old Guard was about 2 hours. Greyhound, though, decent, okay to decent. Didn't love it. It probably could have used to be a little longer to have some more character development. You're kind of just dropped in the middle. You meet Tom Hanks's fiance or whatever, played by Elizabeth Shue, in the first 5 minutes. Then you never see her again. And then it jumps you onto this ship where Tom Hanks is the captain, and they're basically an escort for all these other ships during World War II. Guy we talked about last week pops up. Stephen Graham plays his right hand. He's really good in it. Basically, it's pretty intense during the action sequences. The special effects actually look really good. When I saw the trailer, that was my concern, because they obviously weren't done yet, but they really made the special effects look really good. And so it is a big budget movie, but you get to watch it on your TV as it debuts on iTunes on Friday. On this last Friday, it debuted. If you have iTunes TV Plus, I think is what it's called, it's their pay service. They have a lot of original content that's on there, the brand new movie. The last thing I watched was a new movie, a horror film called Relic out of Australia, starring Emily Mortimer. Very good. Another slow burn, though. Horror films, you got to get into this slow burn. They do that because they want to build up the tension. This movie, though, honestly, both Beach House and this movie, I was getting to a point where I wasn't sure if I was going to keep going. This movie, Relic, though, when it hit probably the 1 hour mark, man, it gets crazy. And it ends crazy. And the ending makes the movie, and it's fantastic. Again, another original horror film. Highly recommend. You can rent that one right now. And it's not available for sale. It just came out for rental. It's $5 or $6 to rent it on Amazon and Vudu and all those places. And last week, I talked about the show Kingdom. I was only 2 episodes in. I'm now 30 episodes in. I've binged through it. I've got 10 more left. It's really good. It's about the MMA. I'm not a huge fan of MMA, but I like movies and TV shows about the MMA. So if that makes any sense, I don't know. Really good. Frank Grillo. Jonathan Tucker is fantastic in this show. He plays Frank Grillo's son, Jay. A lot of character development. He goes through a lot. Nick Jonas is in this show. And it's a serious role from him. 2014 to 2017, it aired on Audience on DirecTV. He's really good in it, too. Keely Sanchez, also very good. She's the female lead on the show. There is some sadness. I'm not going to... I am going to talk about it because it's not really a spoiler, but her character is pregnant. And in real life, Keely was pregnant and she lost her child. So you know how when people are pregnant and they work that into the show, they had to figure out a way to work that into the show. And she let them use her real story, and her character on the show loses the baby. And so that was kind of knowing that it happened to her in real life, and then having to see, she was gone for 8 episodes of that season, so then she came back towards the end. So having to see kind of her act out those 2 episodes that she was in that second part of the season 2, was pretty crazy to know what she must have been going through when she was having that performance. So I just started season 3. I really like it. People should watch it. It's over. All 3 seasons are on Netflix. Definitely check it out. Wayne, you got anything you want to talk about for something you watched this week?
Well, I was pretty light on stuff that I watched the previous week. This week, I definitely tried to make up for it. I started rewatching Lucifer, the one-time Fox show, now on Netflix for its last season. Getting ready for season 5 to drop at the end of August. Tom Ellis stars as Lucifer Morningstar, the devil. Love interest is Detective Chloe Decker, played by Laura German. Supporting cast, Kevin Alejandro, Lisa Ann Brandt, Rachel Harris, D.B. Woodside. Very, very interesting take on the whole good versus evil, God versus the devil thing. Just a fun, sexy,
very sexy,
compelling, cop show, really.
Mm-hmm.
Very multifaceted. Very interesting on season 4 when it landed on Netflix, just the amount of money that is put into the graphics and the special effects really shows difference. I do have to say, I think season 3 is my favorite, where the antagonist is Tom Welling of Smallville. I think that this particular role was his best acting work, other than Draft Day. Fantastic work at Draft Day.
In his 3 scenes.
Smallville fan.
I'm
a big Superman guy. Loved Smallville, but when you go back and watch, there were some scenes where Tom just wasn't the most convincing of actors. And I know that the Superman role and this typecast, many, many actors that portray the Man of Steel, much like Tyler Hoechlin in Palm Springs, whom I don't like as Superman. I don't think he's convincing at all. He did nothing with his acting. I'm not buying it.
Yeah.
Hey, but his, what he does in Supergirl, good on him, but he's not a fan. So, sidetrack there. Yes, Tom Welling in season 3 of Lucifer, fantastic. And I'm really, really excited for season 5 to start. We also, much like you said, you like to put on a movie before bed. I do something similar, only I've been watching... we started The Big Bang Theory again, which is on HBO Max. I love it. I think that it is just fantastic. The early seasons right now, which we're going through, are just so spot on with just the humor and just the nerd jargon before it got into relationships and the girls and whatnot.
God, that show got
Sheldon.
So much hate.
Yeah. I remember when it first started, people wouldn't watch it because, The Big Bang Theory, that's taking away from, the religious people got all offended about it. I'm like, have you tried to watch the show? I mean, I've loved it. I love all 12, 13 seasons that it was on. I just love the characters, and I grew very fond of them. So we're rewatching that right now just before bed. And while going through HBO Max, I saw that I was in the middle of season 4 of Sopranos. So I picked Sopranos up yet again. I just started season 5, and it's starting to get good. The tensions are growing in the family between New Jersey and New York. Season 5 is good because they started reintroducing a lot of incarcerated Goodfellas. One of the 2 of the guys that are getting out of the joints, Robert Loggia.
Gotta love Robert Loggia.
Yes, and then Steve Buscemi, Tony Blundetto. Again, if you haven't seen Sopranos, what are you waiting for? It's an amazing show, and even these side characters are so very compelling. And Tony Soprano is one of these bad guys that you just can't help but love and kind of root for, but kind of hate at the same time. You just feel so conflicted. And again, like we talked about with our, just our organized crime review last week, my favorite, in my opinion, the best TV show of all time. Yes, beating out Breaking Bad. For me, it's Sopranos. I understand the controversy with the ending and whatnot, but there, I said it. Let's have an argument. Y'all send your messages, make requests to be on. Let's talk this out, and I'll plead my case, and I will tell you why you're wrong if you did. So yeah, those are the big 3 that I'm watching right now.
Okay.
Also, Dawson and I are watching the 2012 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on Hulu. My personal favorite version of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Nice.
So, yes.
Very nice. All right, so we're going to move right on to recommending something for people to watch. Now, the last couple weeks, I've done movies specifically. This week, though, I'm going to go to a few free movie apps that I recommend for people. One of them, which you can get on Amazon and PlayStation, and I think Roku as well, is called Tubi. Tubi is free. You have to watch commercials with it, but it's free. If you don't have Netflix, you don't have Hulu, you don't have Amazon, you don't have HBO, it's free. It has movies like The Gambler with Mark Wahlberg, Snakes on a Plane with Samuel L. Jackson, Fury with Brad Pitt. It Follows, one of my favorite recent horror films. Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, kids movie. Man Apart, one of my favorite Vin Diesel movies. The Ong Bak series, which is a great karate kung fu series of movies. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles remakes from a few years ago, produced by Michael Bay, which I actually like, are free on Tubi. So you could watch them right now. King of New York, we talked about that last week. That's also up there. The other one I want to talk about is Vudu. Vudu is a site that I have talked about it many times at Wayne. That's where my digital catalog exists. My digital movies is on Vudu. However, if you sign up for an account, it's free. You don't have to pay anything. And they have tons of free movies that they add every week. Going back to week 1, I recommended the movie May. Found out that's on Vudu for free with ads. Got to watch commercials, but it's free. You don't have to pay anything. New this month, they added Traitor with Don Cheadle. Good movie. Gods and Monsters. The Scream series, 1, 2, and 3. I love Scream. We talked about that on week 1. So get Vudu. Yeah, From Dusk Till Dawn's on here for free. Delirious with John Candy. I love John Candy.
Those aren't pillows?
Yeah, just The Wraith. We talked about that last week. Charlie Sheen, Clint Howard. That is up on Vudu for free. There's so many movies up there that you don't have to pay to watch. I recommend Vudu and Tubi. I use them. If you're into horror films, Tubi's got a great horror selection from old to new. So check them out. That's what I recommend.
Having to sit through commercials is not bad. It gives you time to check your Facebook and your Instagram.
Very true.
Come on, it's good. Good stuff.
All right, Wayne, anything for you this week you want to recommend?
I talked about Netflix before. I talked about a couple other. I talked about Amazon. So this week I'm going to choose Hulu. And they have this section called 90s Nostalgia that you can go through. And it's got Frasier, the Rugrats, Powerpuff Girls, Hey Arnold, Saved by the Bell, if that's your thing. Zach Morris is trash, by the way.
Yes, he is. Those videos are amazing.
Cheers, the original Sabrina the Teenage Witch. And if you need any more enticing, Golden Girls. That is it right there. Picture it. Sicily. Married with Children is on there. Futurama, Seinfeld, Baywatch. I'll be ready.
And also,
lots of good 90s nostalgia on Hulu.
And since you're on this topic of Hulu, I will also recommend Hulu has a deal with FX. Everything that's on FX goes on to Hulu. Sons of Anarchy, The Shield, Dave, the new show by Lil Dicky. If you missed Mayans is another show on FX. Seasons 1 and 2 up on Hulu. To recap, download Tubi, download Vudu, get Hulu if you don't have Hulu. Lots of good stuff on there. We are at the end of week 3 of our podcast here. We've had a lot of fun doing it so far. We hope people are enjoying it. We implore you to get other people to listen. If you like what we're saying, you think other people will like it, talk about us. Get us out there.
We would definitely love some recommendations. If you want us to talk about something, I would love to hear from you.
We definitely, if you got a movie, one thing that I wouldn't say struggle with, but with me, I always like to watch a lot of movies. So one thing that I struggle with every week is something to review. So this week was easy because there were a lot of new ones. There aren't a lot of new movies every week anymore. So if you've got a movie you would like to hear us talk about, please let us know. But yeah, that's basically the show this week. Thank you for listening, everybody. We appreciate it. We look forward to hearing from you, recommendations and stuff that we should watch and review. I'm Mike Kirkpatrick. We're here with Wayne Yerke, and it's a lot of fun talking movies.
Bye, everybody.
Till next week.